One of the most anticipated cards this month for Marvel Snap has arrived, and it's of course Jean Grey. I've got really good news and I've got bad news too, but ultimately these are first impressions as I've been playing Jean Grey for the last several hours since the launch. It is like well into the evening again. It's actually not the evening, it's kind of the morning. I think the sun's coming up soon as I record and edit this video, and we've been playing a ton of Jean Grey. But the good news is that I actually got to Infinite running my Jean Grey Silver Surfer deck, which I'm going to show you momentarily. The bad news is that this card doesn't seem nearly as impactful or as restrictive as I originally had given it credit for. But also, that's also good news if you're someone who's saving their tokens and, hasn't pulled it from a Spotlight Cache or Collector's Cache or whatever. It's not nearly as meta defining as I thought it could have potentially have been. But it's a good card. It seems like a good card. Its control elements are pretty strong. But right now, I think the major thing holding back Jean Grey as a Jean Grey player is that there's several decks that just really don't care about it. For instance, Jean Grey doesn't really impact at all the top deck in the game, which is Bounce. Bounce does not care. If they draw Kitty Pryde, then Jean Grey means nothing. They just play Kitty Pryde into it and they do whatever the hell they want anyways, and the Jean Grey just doesn't do anything in that matchup, which sucks because that matchup is an extremely high win rate matchup for the Bounce player and one of the most common matchups you're facing. In High Evolutionary, you do have the Wasp gameplay, but I did find that Jean Grey was much more restrictive to the High Evolutionary player because if they lockjawed one location and you Jean Greyed the other, Lockjaw felt pretty much useless for them, so it really did have a negative impact on their gameplay. I was playing a variety, I'll show you the deck here, but we were basically doing something called, I had Surfer Jean, It's Not Your Lava, and I love the name, I'm sorry, I had to get creative, and it was a really fun name, and it was just a straight up Surfer list. I actually at some point was running the Spider-Man, which I thought was pretty good too, but Sarah ultimately gave me a lot of opportunities because with Spider-Man and Jean, it's a lot of lockdown, and that was good in some circumstances, but ultimately I think that the Miracle turn 6 plays were pretty valuable with Sarah. This is the deck that I ultimately got to Infinite with. Crazy enough, you're going to see some gameplay highlights later where I'm legit experimenting with Punisher. I tried Punisher legit, and it still kind of sucked, which is kind of surprising because I thought Punisher and Mojo, I thought they were going to do work. They are very synergistic cards with the Jean Grey, but the problem is that there's so much value right now in being able to counteract the Kitty Prydes, which is exactly what the Invisible Woman Killmonger package does, and Mojo hates that because if Mojo's on the board and you blow up your your opponent or your cards with Killmonger, Mojo ends up just dropping down, and it just doesn't it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything because you blow up those 4 stacked locations, right? So Mojo didn't feel good. Punisher just felt horrible because even though Punisher it should be a 3/6 because if you play it into the Jean Grey location, it should automatically get that 3/6 because they have to play into it too. But it still felt just clunky. It didn't feel that good. One thing I will tell you, and I didn't hear anyone talk about this, Polaris seems really good with Jean Grey, and I'll explain why. Basically, the reason why Polaris is as good as I think it is because when you have Jean Grey on the board, they're trying to fill that location, especially if they're not a Bounce player. What happens on turn 5 is you can play something like a Jeff on turn 5, which obviously does not care about the Jean Grey. And then if you play Polaris, you're going to be pulling one of their cheaper cards out of the Jean Grey location, which forces them to play back into that location on turn 6. The Polaris interaction is actually pretty insane because when you have Jean Grey on the board and on turn 5 you Polaris and you pull something out, if they have a Hulk or they could Hulk Wasp, but if they have a Magneto or some specific turn 6 play, for instance, I beat someone who's playing Arnim Zola Venom. They could not play Arnim Zola anymore because literally the Venom's in one location. They thought they had filled the Jean Grey one, but then when I Polaris their whatever the heck out, Bucky Barnes or whatever, their Winter Soldier, they suddenly had to replay into the Jean Grey location, and the Zola play's ruined and the Venom's useless. So there was a really interesting interaction there, which I think was worth noting. But ultimately, I do feel like Surfer Jean is pretty damn good. This deck performed really well. There are going to be variations. I think when the meta shifts and Bounce comes off a bit, you can get rid of the Invisible Woman package of Nova Killmonger, but Invisible Woman and Shadow King is legitimately god tier. I did not think Shadow King would be this good. It has been, because you're able to completely wipe out so many buff states. Shuri gets countered by the Shadow King, Bounce gets countered by Shadow King, and you could even be in a situation where against Bounce, if you have both Shadow King and Killmonger behind Invisible Woman, you basically cover all your bases. If they Kitty Pryde here, it gets destroyed by Killmonger. If they have an armor here and they play Kitty Pryde there, and you can go through the armor with the Shadow King, it provides you with a lot of utility, and Bounce is something you're going to want to counter right now. I like this deck. I literally just got to Infinite tonight playing this deck. So if you're interested in playing something that's good, here's a start. But ultimately, I'm going to show you guys some gameplay highlights so you guys can get an idea of what it's like to play Jean Grey. It's a fascinating card. And if you like the sports series, hit the like button. I really appreciate it. And the games were fun. And the card is good. But with Bounce, it just doesn't quite have the reach that you might expect. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoy these amazing highlights. They're recorded on Twitch. I'll have a link in my description and my comments, so you can join us on Twitch if you so desire. Enjoy these games. All right, let's go here. We got Cloning Vance. I'm so happy I get to play Groot again in a Jean Grey deck, but I gotta tell you, Jean Grey's fault not... Oh, Miniaturized Lab. Not a huge fan of Miniaturized Lab. Oh, we got a Jeff gamer? Damn. I respect it. Well, I got Jeff too, fool. Yeah, Jean's not been great, it seems like. I think the prevalence of Bounce takes a little bit of heat off Jean. Oh! Nebula. Nasty. We do have our Killmonger, though. We're gonna get some Groot value. Look at this Groot! Daredevil, I'll respect it. He's playing lots of Jeffs. Our man loves Jeff. Oh, I didn't even realize it was a high evo list. There was no indication that it was a high evolutionary list. So we actually do outpace that. We get +4 here. Actually, we get the Killmonger as well. This feels snappable. He can move one Jeff. He puts 9 here, plays, so it's 12 power here. I think he plays the Hulk left. He plays Hulk left for sure, right? Yeah. Yep. Very cleanly won. It's a bit of a predictable play pattern, and we just throw up massive points. Yeah, nice. Another 4. Another 4. Jean Grey doing work there, though. Right? Jean Grey out there doing work. You love to see it. I think they went a little overboard with the Jeffs, in my humble opinion. Sometimes Jeff's right spot is on the bench waiting to be tapped into play. But yeah, it's a good win. I like that. It's a good win. And it's a good example of Jean as well, which is nice to see. Oh, that's a great variant. That's a great variant. I love it. Yeah, you get 1-for-1 on the replacement caches, but the Spotlight caches are going to be, they're going to get, like, your regular caches are going to convert into Spotlight caches. I want to draw cards. Shit, I kind of wish I revealed first. Would have drawn that in there. It's Falcon. Jean Grey is useless here. Shit, we can't play here like this. We do this. We give Asgard. It sucks. Oh, he gave Asgard? No way. I was 100% expecting him to play into Asgard. I can't believe that. We still wiped this deck out pretty hard, though. Shadow King Jeff? Okay, Angela, I respect it. That hood dodged the, dodges Bast. Cosmo doesn't make this list. This is probably the most correct play. We've snapped, we go. It's Mysterios. So we do reset the Mysterio as well with the Shadow King. And this massive bishop turns to mush. He plays the Korg, and this is going to be Demon, right? Oh yeah, this is a disaster for him. Complete disaster. Yeah. We're going to hold left as well. Crazy. Just absolutely dismantled this deck. Wow. Wow. That is absolutely insane. That is a complete destruction against the top deck in the game. Right? Like, it's crazy. Like, this is literally the best deck in the game. And we just demolished it.